Hello, my favorite listener. It's Friday and you're back for Into the Dark of the Woods. This is episode 2 of The Laughing Flame. If you were here last week, that one came in hot, didn't it? I thought so. I liked it. I like this arc. This is one of my favorites so far. This show is a Rust Belt studio production and has two other brethren, Mikey and the Garden Arch and The Engine of War. Both of them run every other week, Tuesdays, opposite each other. So there's something every Tuesday in the studio. Like, share, and subscribe go a long way to helping us move forward. Now settle in. The show is about to start. Christmas, Michigan, 1940. The town sparkled with a kind of cheer it had not felt in years. Depression had thinned men to shadows, sent families west, left clapboard houses hollow along the Superior Shore. But the new factory, bright, clean brick and timber set hard against the pines, promised wages again. They called it Christmas Industries, a name to match the place. On opening morning, the line of men stretched down the road, collars turned against the cold, boots leaving sharp prints in the snow. Wives walked with them, carrying babies on their hips, while children pointed and laughed at the painted sign over the door, a jolly Santa raising one mittened hand as if to wave them inside. People talked of sending their letters with the town name on it, their family and friends getting cards from Christmas, Michigan, and the laughter and joy that would spread. The factory windows glowed warm against the morning frost, and inside, kilns hissed and clanked ready for the first batches of ornaments and trinkets. Paint tables stood in neat rows. There was the smell of tin, of lacquer, and of something hopeful. People said it would bring jobs enough to keep their children fed, maybe even money left for gifts come December. Hope hung over the crowd like a banner. And then a voice cut through it all. You fools. The sound was cracked, heavy, and carrying oddly far in the still morning. Heads turned and children fell quiet. An old man had appeared at the end of the line, shuffling slow through the snow. He was bent nearly double, his coat patched and fraying, beard long and yellow-white. His eyes glowed red-rimmed, and a face seamed with cracks as deep as the furnace slag out by Bay Furnace. His accents marked him at once. Cornish, the lid of the cousin Jacks who had dug these mines in their youth. Few remained now, most had gone home or died. But here he was, stubborn as an iron nail, muttering as he came, "You can't build joy from fire. Fire don't forget. Fire don't forgive." Some in the line laughed. Others turned away embarrassed for him. A boy tossed a handful of snow that stuck the man's coat and vanished against the dark wool. "Pay him no mind," a mother whispered, drawing her daughter close. He's touched in the head." The old man ignored them, his gaze fixed on the glowing windows of the factory where the kilns ticked and hissed. He jabbed one crooked finger at the door. "I saw it walk. Saw it climb down from the stack with a crown of sparks. I heard it laugh in the gale. You think you're building Christmas here, but you're building its house." The crowd shifted more uncomfortably. The fireman barked for order, waving the men forward. "Enough of that, Elias." He turned to the crowd. "Time to go to work." The line moved again, boots crunching, children tugged along by hands that gripped tighter now. The old man stood apart, breath rising in ragged clouds. He looked small against the crowd, a relic already fading from view. But his words lingered like smoke. As the factory doors opened and men stepped in the warm glow, more than one glanced back at him, and his eyes had not moved from the windows where they shimmered faintly against the frost. And in that heat, it seemed for a heartbeat that a spark flared, not from a chimney, not from a torch, but from the air itself. The old man nodded once, as though he had seen proof of what he already knew, then he turned and shuffled back into the pines, leaving only the echo of his Cornish warnings behind. Inside, the windows steamed, the radiators ticked, and the heart of the building burned with the orange light of kilns set deep in brick bellies. Men shed their coats and rolled up sleeves, their breath no longer fogging as they bent to do their work. The rhythm came quickly. Barrows of sand and soda ash shoveled in the melting pots. Wooden molds clamped, steel rods turning molten glass like honey on a spoon. Women at paint tables brushed red and gold across thin globes, setting them to dry on racks that gleamed like fields of frozen fruit. It was not coal or copper, not lumber or ore, but something lighter, almost playful, wages earned from beauty. Ornaments to hang on trees, toys for shop windows, decorations stamped "Made in Christmas." Pride hummed in the rafters. Laughter cut between hammer blows, and someone sang a carol in a half-mocking baritone until others joined, their voices filling the high room. For the first time in years, the work did not feel like drudgery, it felt like a future. But the fire was always there. The kilns hissed too loudly, a steady animal breath that swallowed song. The air shimmered with heat, curling around faces and twisting them until the men joked that they all looked like devils. The ornaments clinked faintly on their racks, as if stirred by a draft no one could feel. One boy reached to lift a cooling globe and jerked his hand back with a curse. His palm reddened as though he had touched a stove, though the glass was cool to the touch. The foreman clapped his shoulder, muttering that it was nerves, new work, nothing more. The boy nodded, but stared at the ornament as if it had bitten him. Later, a painter swore she saw her own reflection moving inside a globe even after she set it down. The face and the curve of the glass smiled wider than hers, teeth pale and sharp, eyes lit from within. She dropped it and it shattered, but when the shards were swept into the bin, they glowed faintly like coals hidden in ash. Still, the work went on. In 2 years' time, the pay envelopes filled and bread returned to tables. Men boasted they worked in Christmas. Women laughed about the town's letters stamped with the holly green ink. Children pressed noses to the glass when the factory doors opened, begging for broken toys and scraps of ribbon. And often, in the corner of the yard, the old Cornish man watched. He never came closer than the fence, never spoke after that first morning, but his eyes followed the kilns. Men cursed him under their breath, calling him a crow, a bringer of bad luck. But when sparks spat sideways from the smokestack, drifting against the wind, more than one worker made the sign of the cross when they thought no one was looking. The factory burned bright, the town thrived, but in the glow of those weeks, something else stirred, faint and patient, waiting in the shimmer of heat. It started small. A pipe burst in the boiler room and scalded a man's arm. When the sleeve was out away, his skin looked boiled from the inside out, and he swore the heat had come before the water touched his arm, as if fire had leapt through the metal. The wound hissed for hours, and even when wrapped, it smoked faintly in the cold. Another man woke screaming in the bunkhouse, clutching his chest. He said he dreamed the kiln opened and breathed into him, filling his lungs with sparks. When he coughed, a fleck of black ash fell onto the pillow. His mates laughed, then turned the mattress over so they wouldn't need to see the mark it left. Children waiting outside for scraps told of sparks falling from the smokestack sideways against the wind, drifting across the snow like fireflies. One swore he saw them land on the roof of the church and sink into the shingles without leaving a burn. The priest scolded him for lying, but afterward he kept a bucket of water by his altar just in case. And then there were the ornaments. Racks of them cooled overnight, glossy and bright, but in the morning workers found shapes trapped in the glass. Faces pressed too close, eyes wide, mouths open in silent laughter. One globe showed a man hunched and crowned, arms stretched long as rafters. Another showed flames that seemed to move when tilted in the light. The foreman barked that it was a trick of the heat, a flaw in the glass. Just smash 'em. So they did. Bin after bin, shards swept into piles that glowed faintly even in the dim corners. By then, no one was singing carols at their benches. The laughter had faded, and the glow of the kilns no longer looked like warmth but like something watching. And through it all, The old Cornishman returned. Some days he'd come at dusk, leaning on a stick, eyes fixed on the smokestack. One of the more recent times, he did not mutter. He shouted, voice ragged but strong, carrying over the yard. "You've woken it. I saw it walk when I was young. I heard it laugh in the gale. Burn it now! Burn it, or it'll burn you first!" Workers shouted back, telling him to shut his mouth, calling him a curse, a drunk, a relic. One threw a stone that struck the fence near his feet. The old man didn't flinch. He only pointed at the windows where the glow of the kilns pulsed like a heartbeat. "You think this is Christmas, but it's fire in disguise." Guards pushed him back into the road, and he left, muttering, head bent against the snow, but the words clung. Men carried them to their homes, women whispered them while sweeping glass. Children repeated them in games, laughing nervously. "Burn it now, or it'll burn you first." The kilns always felt like they burned hotter in winter. Even men who had worked iron furnaces swore they had never seen flames so fierce, never felt heat that clung so heavy to their skin. The foreman ordered dampers adjusted, vents widened, but nothing cooled the blaze. It roared on, greedy as if it drew breath from something deeper than the coal. On a bitter night in February, the first batch of ornaments shattered without a hand touching them. They were stacked neatly on racks, painted and cooled, ready for shipment. A whistle blew and men came to carry them in crates. The moment the door opened, a sound rang through the factory, high, thin, like glass under strain. Every ornament cracked at once, dozens burst in sharp, glittering pops. Fragments sprang across the floor. Workers flung up arms, bleeding from tiny cuts. When the shards settled, men swore the glass still moved, crawling across the floor like insects. The women at the paint tables refused to touch the bins. One crossed herself, another muttered a prayer and finished. The foreman barked for order, voice cracking. "It's just a cold shock. The room was hot, the air was cold," but the words rang hollow even as he said them. That night, more ornaments broke, not all at once, not in crates, but one by one. Soft little cracks as if something inside was tapping to be let out. By morning the bins glowed faintly red, shards smoking through, though no fire burned near them. Then came the rafters. It started with a boy sweeping the upper walk. He dropped his broom and froze, staring upward. The foreman shouted, asking what he saw, but the boy only pointed, finger shaking. Others craned their necks, and at first they saw nothing but smoke curling high in the beams. Then the smoke thickened, clung, and formed, shoulders hunched, crown sprouting, eyes lit hollow white. The laugh that followed broke every lamp in the room. Glass shattered down from the rafters, showers of sparks flickering where no flame should have been. Men staggered back, hands over their ears, and women screamed and ran for the doors. The laughing flame crouched among the rafters, crown throwing sparks among the beams. Its body was a lattice of ember and ash, flickering and reforming, never the same shape twice. When it moved, the heat swelled so strong that paint peeled from the benches, curling in on itself like old parchment. The foreman shouted for calm, but his voice was drowned by the roar of the kilns. They had grown louder, shaking in their housings, the light pouring out brighter than the sun. One worker swore he saw faces in the blaze, men, women, children pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent laughter. The rafters groaned and sparks rained down. The fire leaned forward, crown of embers flaring, and dropped from the beams. Where it landed, the floor hissed and smoked, and planks blackened under its steps. Men bolted, some for the doors, some into the snow. A few dropped to their knees, clutching rosaries or whispering names of saints. The foreman stood rooted, torch in hand, knowing already what the old Cornishman had meant. The thing they had woken could not be worked around, could not be managed, could not be bargained with. It had come back hungry, and the only way to scatter it was fire. So the factory fire began not with a spark, but with a choice. The foreman made it, voice ragged, torch clutched so tight his knuckles showed through the soot. He had seen the rafters blaze in that crown of ember. He had heard the laugh that shattered glass. There was no doubt left in him. "Douse it in oil. Any of you that are here left, douse the whole place in order. Burn it to the ground, now!" Men stared at him, stunned, but the fire gave them no time. It strode through the center of the factory, each step hissing, the floorboards sagging black. Paint tables went up first, ribbons curling to ash, ornaments bursting like bubbles. Women screamed and fled into the snow, skirts snapping in the wind. The workers moved then, wild with fear. Barrels were overturned, kerosene splashing across the planks. Torches flung high caught instantly. Flames raced along rafters, leapt from wall to wall until the factory itself became the cage. The laughing flame raged inside it, pounding against the blaze, crowns scraping sparks from beams already collapsing. It threw its form wide, scattering embers that hissed through the snow, but the wind drove them back, dousing sparks before they could catch. For the first time it seemed trapped, pinned in a fire bigger than itself. Elsie Merritt was only 14 when she started working at the factory, and now she stood in the yard with her mother, breath frosting in the night. Her eyes locked on the rafters, where ember eyes flared and dimmed like a heartbeat. She clutched her mother's sleeve, but said nothing. She only watched. The old Cornishman was there too, just beyond the fence, shoulders bent, tears cutting clean lines down soot-streaked cheeks. He did not shout this time. He only whispered the words once. Then Anton, as though naming it might be enough to bind it. The blaze consumed the factory in less than an hour. Walls groaned, the roof sagged, then fell inward with a roar that shook the snowbanks. Sparks swirled in the sky, vanishing into the night. When it was over, nothing stood but a black shell, steaming. Workers huddled in the yard the next morning, faces pale in the fire's afterglow. Some crossed themselves, others wept openly, wages and pride gone up in smoke. No one dared step closer. The air still burned, too hot for comfort, as though the fire inside the ruin had a breath all its own. Elsie looked once more, deep in the wreck. She thought she saw it, a single ember glowing slow and steady, refusing to die. She said nothing, she only memorized it. And the old Cornishman's voice came into her head. You think you've caged it, but fire don't cage. Fire waits. Hello again. This concludes episode 2 of The Laughing Flame. This is a Rust Belt Studio production and was written and performed by Bryan Foster. You can find this and every other Rust Belt Studio production, such as Mikey and the Garden Arch or The Engine of War, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Like, share, and support go a long way to helping keeping the studio moving forward, but if you'd like to do more, you could always join our Patreon, and the link is in the show notes below. For just $2 a month, you will get 1 day early and ad-free access to all 3 of our favorite shows. If you go up to the $5 tier, you add on access to the projection booth, where you will get exclusive content that is only shared with our patrons. At $9, you become an executive producer. You have access to everything, and you will help shape the future of Rust Belt Studios. Whatever you do, stay safe. Holidays are always a fun time of year. And until next time, my favorite listener.